you know, here's the joke of it all. I've been avoiding these old vintage FD lenses for as long as they've become a thing to adapt to cameras. And my buddy Spencer Sakurai, I'm sure you're probably already subscribed to him. If not, there's a link in the description. And I've been joking with him for about a year now that I don't like vintage lenses. I've just like, for some reason in my head, I was like, I don't like the look of it. I think it's silly to have to use an adapter. All of it for me was just like, I want nothing to do with it. That is until, of course, I used one. Moron! Now, obviously, the best part about these vintage lenses is that they are cheap, and so you can find them for as little as sometimes $50. They are starting to go up in price as they got more popular, and there are some FD lenses that are harder to find, and thus they are rarer and more expensive. But at the end of the day, they are photo lenses, and so they do have a lot of photo characteristics. But in terms of what you need for a modern camera, they pretty much have everything that you'd want. They've got aperture control right on the lens. The focus is great. It feels really nice. It's made for manual focus. I mean, these things were mounted to cameras that didn't even autofocus, so the focus feel is fantastic on them. So even though these are fully manual lenses, which means you're not gonna get any electronic contact to your camera, they just work so easily and they look so great that it's not really a big deal for me. I've used them for photos, I've used them for video, and you'll see in the samples just how great it is. And if you're someone who's just not used to manual focus, I think it's a great lens to train yourself on because it just looks so good that you'll be forcing yourself to use this lens more often than not. And of course for video, they just look wonderful. And I think having manual focus in video is just better in general because you have your own control over it. Yes, a lot of people like autofocus. I personally, for filmmaking needs, and especially if I'm doing client work, I like to rely on my own hand and my own eyes for that and not some computer. Now you're probably wondering, how do I even put a Canon lens on my camera? Well, you're gonna have to use an adapter. So I started doing a bit of research on what adapter would be best to go from FD to L mount, and I stumbled upon these Gobe adapters. These things are wonderful. You can get them for about 40 bucks on Amazon. Gobe is just a great company in general. If you haven't heard of them yet, definitely check out more of their products. This isn't sponsored in any way. They've even reached out to me for this video. I personally bought these with my own money. I bought the lenses with my own money. I just really like this product a lot. It's super affordable. It works very well. You're still gonna get your aperture control. It mounts and clicks very nicely to the FD lens, and it also mounts and clicks to the camera very nicely as well. And so it's just a really nice, cheap adapter to keep this system affordable. So the first lens that I picked up was the 50mm f1.4. Now, if you wanted a 50mm f1.4 for L mount, you're easily $1,000 plus at this point. So the fact that you're getting like a 50mm portrait lens at f1.4 on full frame for less than $100, there's really nothing to complain about here. Now, it's of course a vintage lens, so it's gonna have a lot of low contrast. You might see some haze. It's gonna feel a little bit cooler. The color contrast and the color reproduction will not be what you're used to with a modern lens, but it is a vibe, as we like to say. It is a mood. It's gonna add this like feel to your photos that you just really don't get with a modern camera or a modern lens. And so it's giving you this sort of like anti-digital feeling, which I think is actually a huge positive for these. It's kind of removing a lot of that clinical aesthetic that is coming from a lot of these digital cameras now. Now, I love this 50mm so much that I ended up picking up a 28mm too. And I was thinking, why do I like this 28mm focal length so much? And honestly, it's because it matches the wide camera on my iPhone as close as possible. The wide camera on an iPhone is about 26, 27mm. So in terms of field of view, I just really enjoy that focal length, and having an f2.8 for full frame, it's enough bokeh. It's really nice. I do a lot of my handheld stuff with this lens, and it's super easy to focus. I basically put it at its nearest setting. I can just sit there, hold and click, and it's easy to grab focus with it. So the 50mm and the 28mm are my two favorites right now. I am eyeing the 35mm as well, the f2. It's a little bit more expensive. It would just be nice to kind of flesh out the kit to have the three of them, just have 28, 35, and a 50. I just think that's a nice set of primes to have in the kit for video and for photos. And you know, look, FD lenses can be adapted to a myriad of cameras. It doesn't have to be an S-series camera. If you have a Canon, if you have a Sony, whatever it is, there's a lot of ways to mount these FD lenses to your camera. And so if you're just looking for a lens right now and you think, you know, I just don't want to drop $1,000, I don't even want to drop $500, I think you should really look at these vintage FD lenses. And there's just not enough people talking about it specifically with S cameras, because there is a lot of people talking about L mount being so expensive. So here's a little bit of a solution until that lens market really fleshes itself out, which we know is inevitable at this point, and it's coming very soon. Now, I want to leave you with some portraits that I shot with the S5 and the 50mm FD 1.4, because I think this is just a really good demonstration of what these lenses are capable of, specifically the 50mm, of course, but the 28mm is not far off. But my buddy Lee Zavitz, who I've mentioned many times on this channel, make sure you go subscribe. We went out for a little bit of a portrait session. He was doing a video, I was going to do a video, so we kind of combined forces. And I was able to piggyback off a photo shoot that he was doing for a video. So if that video is not up on his channel yet, it will be soon. Definitely go subscribe because he's got a ton of great content to watch anyways. But we basically did a street photo shoot session, and I took as many shots as I could with the 50mm and the S5. And I just want to show you some of those samples because, I mean, I'm not a portrait photographer, and I think this is some of my best work that I've ever done with portraits. And I know the lens is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for me, on top of Lee being a wonderful stylist and Kira being a wonderful model. But, you know, I feel like I found a little bit of my eye with this lens, and I'm just kind of excited now to do more portraits, which is super off-brand for me. I just really don't typically shoot portraits. But we always talk about gear inspiring you to do things, and I think that's an unintended consequence of getting this lens, that I'm now inspired to shoot portraits. Like, who would have ever thought? And so I like picking things up that make me think a little bit differently, and I think this lens could potentially have that same impact on you. But enough talking. Here's some portraits with the 50mm on the S5. So as you can see, this lens, it's super beautiful. Like, honestly, even if you miss focus a little bit because you're manually focusing, it's still like such a vibe that I don't even hate it. Like, it's obviously not the easiest thing in the world to always lock focus with this lens because it's a bit older. It's always going to be just a little bit soft wide open. But at the same time, when you do lock that focus, these things are relatively sharp, if not actually super sharp, considering their age and how old they are. But at the same time, you got to remember, like, these were like cream of the crop lenses when they came out. And really, in terms of glass technology, yeah, of course, we've made huge advancements in terms of size and optical quality, but at the same time, there was years and years of work done with FD lenses that people absolutely love. So there's no reason why you can't continue to make great work with it. Everybody uses film cameras using FD lenses, and everyone uses old cameras in that sense. So there's nothing wrong with getting great work with old vintage lenses as well. So I was wrong. I was completely wrong about vintage lenses. So Spencer, if you made it this far into this video, I apologize, my dude. I'm gonna open a beer because that's something you always do. Cheers, buddy. FD lenses are actually pretty good, and I was completely wrong about them. I admit defeat. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions about these FD lenses or the Lumix S5, I'll pretend to know the answer because I probably won't. But hey, we'll have a nice back and forth. You'd be like, hey, this guy actually answered my comment. That's awesome. He's got like 30,000 subscribers, and I'm just some nobody, and he actually listened to me. We're all nobodies here. Nobody's special. Everybody's just winging it. We don't know what the hell's going on here. I'm talking to a camera right now in my goddamn bedroom. It's all, who the hell knows? But leave a comment. It helps the algorithm, apparently. Leave a like, subscribe, all that shit. Anyways, I'm Patrick Tomasso. Hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you real soon. Cheers.